Best get to it so I can start my holiday weekend. Let's talk. What up, viewers? What up? What up? Calc Soups here, and today is Friday, June 30th, and that means it's time for a quick recap of the week in video game news. Starting off this week, there was a kind of end of E3 presentation, I guess, or not. E3 is still continuing even towards the end of June. This week was an Annapurna showcase, so not as big as some of the bigger publishers, but still something that usually catches my eye. I also was questioning, wasn't there? I'm trying to think of what there was a present. I feel like Annapurna did something in May, or maybe they were just part of like the PlayStation showcase or something. Where I think I remember them the same week that like PlayStation did theirs, but maybe I'm misremembering. It's been a long E3 season for everyone. But Annapurna showed off a bunch of cool games. I won't talk about every single one of them. I'll just talk about the ones that caught my eye. The big news coming out of it was a Blade Runner game, which I think anybody who's a Ridley Scott fan is going to enjoy a Blade Runner game. And so I think just living in that world might give us maybe the cyberpunk itch that we're looking for. Very curious to see what they do with a Blade Runner video game. Another game that caught my eye was Ghost Bike. Apparently there's like maybe a Spiritfarer-esque, deals with death kind of nature to it, but otherwise it was just a bike racing game, which kind of caught my eye. Something that you typically see every day. Other big news was Stray is coming to Xbox, I think in August. So Xbox fans will soon be able to play as a little cat. And that might be the way I play it, even though I have a disc of Stray waiting for me on my PS5 sitting right there. Last but not least, there was a little bit of a Storyteller. Storyteller was kind of like a side profile story game that you could play on Netflix. And I think there's more content coming out for that. So that caught my eye as well. Also, it's on the Netflix app, so I'll have to figure out how to get to that because I thought it looked pretty cool. You have like, you're trying to like piece together a story using kind of 5 pieces or a couple of pieces and trying to put it all together, and you have access to like the king and the queen and the characters all in it. So some game I've yet to play, but I thought looked really cool. And now that there's new content coming out for it, maybe I will download the Netflix app and figure out how to play games on that. But that's it for the Annapurna showcase. Let me know if there's any others that caught your eye or that I should keep my eye on. Moving right along, some veteran devs have started up a new studio. I think it's called Story something. Oh God, I don't remember what the name of the studio is, but they just announced their new game. It's called Project Loki. Well, they didn't announce the game. They talked about a project they're working on called Project Loki. I'm pretty sure that's a stand-in name. And it comes from a lot of like the League of Legends devs, and it's got some Apex Legends veterans working on it as well. And that all kind of comes together when you see that it is it's like pre-alpha, alpha, alpha. That's what they kind of said in their promo video. But it's League of Legends, but as a battle royale. So I think you jump in with a squad of friends, and you have kind of League of Legends-esque characters running around with their different abilities, and you're kind of running around collecting resources, leveling up. And then you're gonna try and battle each other, and you have to stay within the circle and all that kind of stuff. So kind of a blend of two things that you haven't seen before. The League of Legends nature of it plus a battle royale seemed very interesting. And yeah, I thought the game looked pretty fun. I think a lot of as with anybody growing up on video games, you eventually dabble into MOBAs, and I think MOBAs are great, but this might be the next kind of expansion on the genre. Is just kind of a character driven battle royale is kind of an interesting concept to wrap your mind around. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what they do with the project. It definitely looks and feels a lot like League of Legends, so I don't know if that will capture a new audience other than League of Legends people, but yeah, it's interesting to kind of see what they get. And with it being so far into alpha, I bet we're not going to see this for a few more years, but it was a cool kind of snippet to see this week. Speaking of League of Legends, Riot officially announced their new summer game mode where it allows you to play, where it's 2 players. So I think they have a 5-player game mode. They have ARAM where it's all everybody in one lane. But now they've announced there's a 3-person game mode. but now they've announced a 2v2 game mode, which I think there's actually 8 people in the game, and then you like pair off for matches and kind of creates a tournament structure. It seemed pretty interesting. I thought, when it said 2v2v2v2, I thought it was going to be live, like, 8 people go in, only 2 survive kind of thing. But, that was just kind of what my thought is. I want to see more and more kind of death matches, but with multiple, with 3 or more kind of subsets of people. That's kind of where my brain's been for a while now. So, but you can play 2v2. I'm curious how the meta of League of Legends will bend to kind of a 2v2, whether or not you want 2 damage dealers or a healer and a damage dealer, or 2 tanks who are unkillable with like slight heals. I'm curious to see how the meta kind of shakes out 2v2 in League of Legends, but I digress. Baldur's Gate 3 is coming a few weeks early, and they're not being bashful about why they moved their game. They moved it from the end of August to the beginning of August, from August 31st to August 3rd, and they've specifically said we're avoiding Starfield. Starfield coming out in September is a pretty big 800-pound gorilla in the game space, especially from their very successful kind of showcase at E3, or not E3. So I could see why someone would move out of the way. Baldur's Gate also an RPG, so might run into some friction there. And I'm looking forward to playing both, but I'm glad that I can play Baldur's Gate a little bit sooner. It has been in kind of, I don't know if they call it beta or open access for the past, or early access for the past year or so, but this is the full 1.0 launch with all the content and a couple more classes. But we'll be able to play that a little bit earlier at the beginning of August 3rd. So I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of gaming and what we're playing, July is tomorrow. So roll your calendars forward. And as for what's coming out in July, I read a couple articles about what's coming out. I haven't put together my full comp slate or calendar yet, which is something you should be looking out for. But July, there are still a few games coming out in July, but it isn't going to be as action packed or have a big hit like has been going since the beginning of the year. It's been a pretty big year for gaming, and July has a few good hits, but not as many as you might expect from an unprecedented number of bangers that have been coming out this year. The big ones that I see coming out in July are Remnant 2. Me and my friends are already starting to talk about what we're going to play and how we're going to play it. So we are very excited for Remnant 2. Remnant being a surprise hit from 2018, I believe, is when Remnant came out. Kind of a Dark Souls shooter, and so we're excited to see what they can do. I think Gunfire Games was the name of the studio, and they immediately got picked up by Sony. So hopefully, with some Sony money, we can see how well that changes the meta and builds out on what was already a really successful formula with Remnant. And then Pikmin 4 is coming out next month. So for anybody who wants to play get some strategy, run around collecting Pikmin and play it in the kind of the new world. I've talked about Pikmin a couple times, especially back at the Nintendo Showcase or the Nintendo Direct. So I am looking forward to Pikmin, and the multiplayer mode might actually bring my wife into the fold and we can play Pikmin together. So looking forward to that as well. But let me know if there's any other games in July you think I should keep my eyes on. But those are kind of the big ones that rise to the top for me, at least. Moving right along, I've talked about it a couple weeks now in a row. The FTC looking into the Microsoft purchase of Activision Blizzard King. And we keep getting leaked documents and slowly getting more and more information. And one of which was the Call of Duty announcement. The next Call of Duty game is announced. It's coming out in November. So I think Activision was a little pissed that came out in the wash there. Especially since they haven't even put a name to it or talked about it at all yet, and they just had their chance to at Summer Games Fest or something like that. So they were kind of pissed about that. Sony also getting a little bit of heat and a little bit of their secrets spilled with the dev cost for their redacted dev costs for Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us 2, both over $200 million in dev cost. they had actually redacted it, but then Xerox did, and the Xerox picked up the words, and it was still clearly. So Sony was not too happy about that. Getting put out there. No one wants to really talk about the exact number of their dev costs. They talk about, you can kind of get estimates out there. People can estimate that kind of stuff, but getting an exact number kind of is not good for business sometimes. So Sony gets there, and then now it's the full console wars here because Nintendo is involved, and I think that was the big one that caught my eye was the FTC showing that they don't really understand gaming. The question of the week was, what console generation is Nintendo on? And I think any knowledgeable expert within the games community will have a different answer on what console generation Nintendo is on, which is just kind of funny. I'm curious what the context was for it, but with the fact that they cut their console generation in half to release the Switch, and now talks about potentially a Switch 2, and us knowing from the FTC stuff that like the next generation Xbox and PlayStation aren't for like 5 more years. So, trying to understand where Nintendo fits into that and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought it was an amusing anecdote coming out of the FTC stuff. Let me know if there's anything else I should look into there. One other piece of interesting news that came out this week was Meta is announcing their subscription service for their VR, which I think is actually a pretty interesting approach to VR. I think individually buying games for VR, might not seem feasible, or, might not be the way people engage with VR. I think putting it all into a subscription service is actually kind of good for the consumer. You can kind of test things out, play it for a month and then turn it off and figure out which games that you want to play or own permanently and any of that kind of stuff. But I think it's actually a pretty interesting model and potentially good for the consumers to just kind of test everything out for a month and then figure out what you want to buy. I assume they want you to forget that you have the subscription service like you do with your gym membership, and just continue to pay for it, so they can collect their $8 a month. But I actually think I think it will be used for consumers' benefit to kind of put all of VR, because it's not a really big space. You can try out, you can sample a little bit of everything, and then kind of pick which way you want to go and what games you want to maybe permanently own. And I think that's a really good way to kind of get into the VR space because there isn't a plethora of games out there, so you can just try one of the handful of games that you like and then pick one and move on from there. So I think it's actually a pretty good model. As much as we all kind of loathe having so many different subscription services, I think this one actually might be potentially beneficial for people's $8 a month to try that out. So that might be how I get into how I consume VR games when I eventually buy into VR, a space I'm very interested in. Moving right along, BlizzCon 2023 is happening this year and in person for the first time in 4 years since the pandemic. They announced the ticket price, which is $300, which I was immediately like, was it always $300? Has there been kind of some kind of growing upscale here or what? But yeah, so $300 tickets. They also announced when it'll go on sale. I think they go on sale second week of July or so. I think was the first wave of when you can buy your BlizzCon passes, which gets you obviously some in-game goodies for all your Blizzard games that you're playing. You can also get early access to you can get early access to the store, which I assume is to buy all the exclusive merch, so you can resell that on eBay or whatever. But yeah, I thought the ticket price seemed just a little bit high at $300, so I got a little sticker shock when I saw that. So if that's usually how it is, let me know down below in the comments. Oreos have taken a bit. They're not making any more new flavors for a second here. They're instead just putting different pictures on the front. And this time it is a picture of Mario and Luigi. I assume off of the success of the movie, they've decided to put Mario and Luigi on the front of their cookies, and they can put Mario and Luigi, now a brand name, a large brand name, larger than it was before the $1 billion movie came out. And now they can sell a few more Oreos now that they have Mario and Luigi on it. I'm kind of talking down my nose at it, but I probably will buy some Mario and Luigi Oreos just to see kind of what it looks like, and I enjoy Oreos anyway. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fun to see what Mario and Luigi on some Oreo cookies is like. Not that it'll change the flavor or anything, but Yeah, let me know what you think of the Mario and Luigi cookies down below. Last but not least, if you had given me 100 guesses for upcoming video games turned movies or TV, I would not have gotten to this one. This week was announced an Among Us TV show. I am very curious with the somewhat limited plot, and we've all known that Among Us is kind of ripping off, as far as plot is concerned, Among Us is kind of ripping off The Thing, the classic Thing movie. So I'm very curious what they'll do with like an Among Us plot, trying to figure out who's the traitor. I think what are they called? I forget what they're called in Among Us. Who the traitor is anyway. So imposter. That's what they were called. Imposters. Yeah, I think just the general idea of like trying to figure out who the imposter over the course of, I don't know, 4, 6, 8, 10 episodes, I think has some weight to it. I think it actually would be pretty interesting. Whether or not they're all running around with no arms and very colorful suits will remain to be seen. But yeah, I'm curious what they're going to do with an Among Us TV show. Let me know what you think down below. That's it for this week. If you feel I forgot anything, feel free to leave a comment down below. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you do, please follow, like, and subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitch so you can see more great content like this. I'll have links down below in the description. Thanks again. I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super weekend. And I hope you have a super day. Bye.